Third-party management is Control A.2 in the ITGC framework. It exists because attackers don't always break down your front door. Sometimes they enter through a vendor. The Target breach is the clearest example of why this control matters. In November 2013, attackers compromised one of the largest retailers in the United States. They stole 40 million credit card numbers and the personal information of 70 million customers. The financial impact exceeded $200 million. Both the CEO and CIO lost their jobs. And the initial entry point was not a firewall or a server. It was an air conditioning vendor. Target used a contractor, Phasio Mechanical, to remotely monitor refrigeration units. Phasio had a login to Target's vendor portal. Attackers sent a phishing email, obtained those credentials, and used them to enter Target's network. A heating and cooling contractor's password became the front door. But the real failure was not Phasio. The issue was Target's internal controls. The vendor had been granted network access with no segmentation and no monitoring. Once attackers entered through the air conditioning portal, nothing prevented them from moving laterally across the environment. They reached the point-of-sale systems and extracted card data directly from memory. A vendor connection should never have had a path to payment systems. Third-party management means knowing every vendor that touches your systems or your data, understanding exactly what they can access, and holding them to your security standards throughout the entire relationship. Any vendor with access becomes part of your attack surface. The risk is straightforward. A vendor with legitimate access becomes an attacker's pathway if they are compromised. A vendor that stores your data exposes it if they suffer a breach. Over-reliance on a single vendor creates a single point of failure. And without a structured program, you cannot answer the basic question, who has access to what? At Target, the gaps were textbook. There was no risk tiering, an air conditioning contractor was treated like any other vendor. There was no network segmentation, the vendor zone had a clear path to payment systems. There was no monitoring of Phasio's security posture. Security requirements in the contract were weak. And critically, the alerts did fire, but no one acted on them. Effective third-party management includes a complete and current vendor register, detailing every third party, their access, and their risk rating. It includes risk tiering, so high-impact vendors receive appropriate scrutiny. It includes security assessments, such as questionnaires and certifications like SOC 2 or ISO 27001 for critical vendors. It includes contractual security obligations. And it requires least privilege access, ensuring vendors operate in a segmented zone with no path to sensitive systems. Auditors test this by reviewing the vendor register and identifying vendors that are missing. They examine the risk tiering methodology. They test onboarding to confirm that security assessments were completed before access was granted. They review contracts for meaningful security clauses. They test actual access, looking for vendors whose contracts have expired but whose accounts remain active. And they confirm that logs are being reviewed. There are 5 key lessons. First, build and maintain a vendor register, it is the foundation of the program. Second, enforce least privilege and place vendors in a segmented zone with no lateral path. Third, make security a contractual obligation to ensure accountability. Fourth, do not rely solely on certifications. A SOC 2 report is a snapshot, not a guarantee. Fifth, vendors can introduce risk to your organization. Third-party risk remains your risk. Third-party management is Control A.2 out of 38. I'm covering each control, supported by real breaches that demonstrate why they matter, every week at markaweb.org. Subscribe to receive them in your inbox, and try the free ITGC audit tool to assess your own controls.